man held for 15 years.
Hey guys, welcome back to the second episode of Blockchain Banter on YouTube. Banter at internet speed. I have myself and Quick Crypto as the co-host, and this week we have Rory from the KII, and we also have Teresi from the KII. Sorry, we all know you as I am Envy on X.
Yes.
How you doing, guys? You okay?
Yeah. Greetings. Everything is fine. Greetings from Prague.
Sweet.
Rory's busy there. Can you give a bit of background, Envy, on like what you're looking after for KII or what you used to do?
Yeah. I think the basic is actually we are all coming from different fields, as we, all the Kaspa fans and enthusiasts coming from a different fields. That's why it's so fascinating for me to actually work with all those people around, because everyone is bringing their thing. My background is kind of security, civil engineering, energy, and TV production and television as well. So that's so I keep my TV things and series things as a hobby, and on a side I work with Rory for, I don't know, 10 years already on in energy field, DC, high voltage, and crazy stuff around it. And we always was missing something, and we found it with Kaspa. And for us, I think the Kaspa is the missing link, what we needed. And now everything's starting and booming. It's great.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I can see that both the KII and what's been happening there has been, especially since the year started, been so much going on just all over the Twitter feeds recently. I feel like every 3 or 4 days, a new announcement, a new secret or something that's just coming out. We'll get to Rory's introduction, but right now your camera's off. I'm not sure that is by accident or not.
But while he's busy there,
Yeah.
Envy, are you, or is he coming back? No. Are you looking after the KII satellite project for KII?
Yes, we like this project is kind of fascinating because we started this as a CubeSat, like small thing, and now it's everything is booming. And I was working on actually studying with the different group. We were planning a satellite which is supposed to go towards the moon, but in the end of the day we didn't have the financing. So basically the project, so we had kind of cooperating with those people with whom I was already working before, and taking. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what we.
Oh, now he's back. He's having problems with his camera. Here he is.
Yeah.
There he is.
Finally. Hi guys.
Hello.
How are you, Rory?
Good, thanks.
Rory, your background, your family's been in the energy business for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, since about 150 years at this point. It's been a long journey. Every generation of my family, since my great grandfather was involved in the energy industry in one way or another, and my daughter, who went and studied something completely different, suddenly ended up in the energy industry for a little while, and now she's working for a different company, and it just so happens they put her on an energy project. So I think it's unavoidable.
She's the competition.
Absolutely. So she, because of my connections to the energy industry, she has come and asked me a few questions, but She's very secretive. She can't tell me who the clients are or what they're working on, because it would be a breach of her NDA. So she's not all that communicative with me about it. But nonetheless, yeah, we have a long family history in the energy industry, and from a sensory perspective, having been involved, from 8 years of age, the smell of stale gas from all the equipment having been used to block pipelines for repairs, the sound of diggers digging up things, machinery processing gas, right down to the whine of a turbine, and those sounds have taught me that energy is memory, but energy is also money. Energy equals hard money, and that's something that I'm very aware of. And the work that I'm doing today with KII is that I'm building verifiable digital memory for the world energy markets on Kaspa, and that's quite interesting. And my family's been in energy for generations, and we literally have old ledgers from the 1800s, big giant books that recorded, who supplied what, who owned what, and when. And that's really interesting, because Kaspa and blockchain is often referred to as digital ledger technology. And I have something quite interesting that you guys might like to see, which is a ledger from 1920 from the energy industry. 1912 from the energy industry, and I can open it up and show you what an energy ledger from 1920 looks like.
It's like Lord of the Rings, that.
This is week ending April 3rd, 1919, but it actually starts in 1918. So I'm just gonna try and. It's very heavy. It's also very old and fragile, so I will be very careful with it. I don't know if the camera can see that.
Yeah.
This is a ledger from. So
that looks heavy.
So heavy, and very dusty. As you can see, this one is 1919.
Damn.
And this is an energy ledger for the payroll of an energy company from my family's history going back. Now my desk is completely covered in all sorts of old dust and everything else. But the thing is, that's a real ledger from an actual gas company. And in here, you can, if we were able to look in closer on the camera, maybe I'll photograph this. We're able to actually look and see the ledger. I'll take some photographs later and maybe share. But you can actually see my grandfather's grandfather recorded in the system of record.
Ooh, wow, that's history. That.
When we think about that, that's recorded in a ledger system of record, and that hits me very hard, because we've been using ledgers to run the real world for a very long time, and energy, utilities, trade, everything runs on trusted records, and blockchain. Or block DAGs is basically a modern version of this. So instead of one book in one office, it's a shared ledger across many nodes. So the medium has changed to digital, but the mission of the ledger didn't. It's for truthful records and accountable coordination. And it makes me wonder of all the projects that exist today, how many will exist in 120 years? Recording today's information about the energy system and who owned what and who did what at a particular time and place. So, and that's what interests me about Kaspa as a technology, is its direction, its performance-based plus decentralization, and effectively how fast a ledger can update while still staying honest and distributed. So, you know, as we talked about, you know, I grew up learning pipelines and power grids, networks, flows, redundancy, constraints, safety margins. So when I look at Kaspa or blockchains or digital ledger technology, I don't see tokens. I see infrastructure, I see nodes, I see throughput, I see bottlenecks, I see reliability. And you know, that's one of the things that I learned, you know, when I've been building pipelines and grid build outs and developing new technology to facilitate, you know, some crazy projects like some of the early DII Desert Tech work, which was to bridge the Mediterranean. We had to go back to first principles. And that was very interesting because in building out those types of networks and developing that type of technology, it's where I learned systems thinking. So we would do one obstacle, and one obstacle equals one lesson. So the present mission of KII plus Kaspa is this neutral settlement ultra-fast layer. And we started looking at it for energy and carbon and energy finance. And we figured out very early on that Kaspa was something that was worth spending time and effort and working on. So sorry, I'm still cleaning up my desk of all of the all of the residue of everything that was left behind from the ledger. So in terms of dust, we often talk about dust attacks. On blockchains. Well, I'm currently having a dust attack from a 120-year-old digital ledger or physical analog ledger.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I just listening to you there makes me very reassured in regards to your history, your family's history, in regards to the knowledge you have for ledgers and energy, and therefore the utilization of Kaspa is, I mean, it makes me more confident in that sense. And when we talk about one reason why Kaspa is as quick as it is why it can have such functionality, is the fact that with other blockchain infrastructure, it goes recording everything from the archival node, where Kaspa does not need to do that. With block-like architecture, that's what makes it a lot quicker as well.
Yeah, so we started in December 2015. And we had some breakthroughs in terms of ideas related to the use of blockchain in energy. And we spent a lot of time working on that. We invested a lot of money. We partnered with a lot of people. And the issue that we had was we couldn't make it scale. We were taking something that was ostensibly, you know, for DeFi and you know, very early ideas about blockchain. Still, I suppose in the early days of when it was still, you know, the cypherpunk movement, and at that time, we were heavily involved in renewable energy and energy transmission systems, and we were looking for sources for them, and solar power at that point was starting to gain traction, but just a few years before, in say 2012, solar PV was considered one of the most expensive sources of energy, and now it's the cheapest source of energy on the planet. So in the Middle East, people are building and selling power at 1.3 cent per kilowatt hour, making a lot of money. So that's gone from where it needed subsidies from being about 70 or 80 cents down to 1.3 cent a kilowatt hour. So that's been a huge shift, and certainly our friends in DII, which I've been involved in since that time, and Paul Van Son has been a real leader in really pushing forward the adoption of solar technology, in particular, now moving to new alternative forms of energy like green hydrogen, green ammonia, a technology called ferrogranulate, sustainable aviation fuel, and all of those sorts of other interesting things. And so where we began was we were looking at building the full end-to-end systems on blockchain, and we found we just couldn't scale it. We were overwhelmed with data, and we built out systems, and we figured we couldn't reliably build them without sharding and all sorts of other things that we didn't need. And then we found that, well, we were collecting so much data and information, we didn't actually need it, and it would very quickly overwhelm any of the blockchains that we were looking at. So we're 2026, so we've had a good 10 or 11 years to work on these problems, and a lot of these problems arose even earlier in the early days of energy deregulation. And Paul worked with pretty much all of the European utility companies to develop an organization called EFET, and EFET created all of the market standards and frameworks in which the current energy system in Europe and similar works upon, and other networks have since and other countries have adopted those standards as the global standards for trading energy across both internally within countries and across borders. So we have a lot of experience in building trading exchanges, all of the regulatory policy in terms of designing markets and everything else. And in November 23, Paul established an organization called Zeta Global, the Zero Emission Traders Alliance. Mm-hmm. And the job of that was to create new markets for these new forms of energy coming on stream that I talked about, like green hydrogen and sustainable aviation fuel and all those sorts of other things. And then in the meantime, we've had the Paris Agreement, and we've had a lot of institutional money looking at backing green hydrogen projects. So those projects are under active development right now, but the problem is the market doesn't really exist because there's no standards, there's no interoperability, everything is siloed. There's no standards for creating digital carbon credits or RECs, and lots of people have done things on a proprietary basis, and they're kind of missing the point because they're coming to it from crypto land perspective, where we're coming to it from a real world perspective. And many of our partners have tried blockchain projects before, have tried to tokenize and issue tokens for projects and everything else, and they've all failed. And one of the great things about the DII network of 120 of the biggest energy companies in the world is that we're able to learn from these companies. And we'll talk later about some of the lessons that we've learned and why we're doing things the way we're doing things. So we started off looking for a solution for Zeta to make sure that we could actually build a robust, first of all, regional market for the MENA region, which is where most of the renewable energy projects are coming from, and we wanted to build a system from the beginning that was going to be robust, that would stand the test of time, that would be immutable, and would have end-to-end source-to-sink traceability in terms of provenance of origin related to both the commodity and then the financial derivatives and financial markets that come from that. And so we discovered Kaspa, and Kaspa met a very detailed evaluation rubric that we created a long time ago, very well, and we spent some time, several months looking at it. We wrote some papers and some reports and studies on Kaspa, and we discussed it with some key people within the industry, and we eventually talked to Paul as I suppose one of the godfathers of the energy industry and one of the pioneers of alternative energy. And Paul loved it, and so we decided to move forward and use Kaspa as a base to build upon. And then we ended up meeting Shai, and we learned a lot more from Shai about Kaspa, which was fantastic.
He was at Trinity College, wasn't he?
He was giving a lecture at Trinity College in Dublin. And we met and we spent the entire day together, and Shai had a very healthy sampling of a wide array of Irish whiskies, which he's partial to, and we discussed, industry adoption of Kaspa, how we could bring large volumes of transactions. How we discussed in detail how we were not interested in crypto land at all. We weren't interested in token raising or token issuing.
Rory's just dropped out. That is.
Oh, he's back. He's back.
Okay, that's. Oh no.
This is why we need network resiliency.
Exactly, you're talking too much. They don't like it.
So we established KII, and just to be clear, the mission of KII is to be industry facing, and to act as a market enabler for industry and enterprise to adopt Kaspa. So the pillars that we're developing, like Warp Core for ISO 20022 or ZTEX for carbon, they're industry pillars that we want to build upon to facilitate, first of all, the energy industry, but also other industries. And you'll find, if you just look around the room, all the viewers, if they just look around the room, every single item that's in your room right now comes from energy. Every damn thing in your room comes from energy, either petroleum for the plastics, for Envy's lipstick, for the materials that were mined. Everything needed energy to get to you, right down to being delivered, to making the packaging, everything. So the energy has a very, very big supply chain in itself, but then it's used as the base for every other supply chain and industry in the world.
Yeah, no, I can completely agree, and that's one thing that I have preached a lot through my own community about the fact that, and you've seen it from, Elon Musk has said it, Michael Saylor said it, about how the actual true value in form of money, it comes down to, it's not a matter of, just fiat or paper or whatever it is. It actually comes down to the energy expended to generate it. That's why gold has always continued to appreciate over time, because it's a finite resource that continues to require a lot of energy to mine it. And the same could be said for Bitcoin, actually proof of work to mine it, and then in this case Kaspa as well. Difference being Kaspa has that architecture that can actually allow it to scale.
And then it's secured by energy as well. More importantly, you need vast amounts of energy to keep Bitcoin. Much less so for Kaspa. Kaspa is orders of magnitude more efficient in terms of energy usage and throughput and usefulness, but nonetheless, it still is secured by energy. So it requires energy to run, and energy, it takes energy and turns it into a digital commodity that has value because it comes from energy.
Yeah.
And that's why every other token that's out there has no value. It has no intrinsic value because it doesn't come from anything. It's just made up.
Yeah, they print it out thin air and they give it a label of proof of stake, so you're staking to earn rewards. But if you're printing out thin air, what's to stop you from doing that again?
Exactly, it's meaningless.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that introduction out of the way, thank you very much for that, Rory. We will come back in a very short moment to you, Envy, but I wanted to quickly start off with this post, which we've got a bit of insight about. This, of course, is going to be a new post that was dropped from KII just yesterday. Very ominous here, very, I'm imagining it to be very, very exciting. To my understanding, it's referring to something called GeoSeal. So would you be able to please elaborate a little bit on what this is and why we should be very excited for this new, seemingly new project that KII are building on Kaspa?
Yeah, so how we're building things within Kaspa is we're doing things with great intention and great care to do things in a logical order, to make onboarding to Kaspa very simple to industry. So Workcore was the first for a very easy onboarding of financial institutions, much easier than anybody else that's doing an ISO stuff. And we'll talk about Workcore in a little while, I'm sure. But if you think of how we're building things like Lego blocks. So we're building individual components that will add up to a much bigger overall system. And each component or each Lego block can be assembled in a different way. And eventually with things like vProgs and everything else on layer 1, we'll be able to assemble all of these together to do an act in a programmable way to facilitate many different activities. So GeoSeal is something that's going back to first principles. And what it is, it's a proof of place and proof of existence system built on Kaspa. And we've actually updated the post just a little while ago. So the full details and explanation of it is on X, but please don't leave YouTube right now. Like and subscribe and all of that sort of good stuff.
That's a man who knows. He knows. Let's go.
But so GeoSeal, it's a system that provides a proof of place and proof of existence. So effectively, I'll simplify it. It lets a person, an asset, or a key event cryptographically attest that it actually occurred at a specific location and time without tracking or surveillance. So instead of GPS logs or self-reported data, GeoSeal creates a single intentional proof that's anchored immutably on Kaspa that can later be verified by regulators, insurers, or counterparties. And it's very important for things like the carbon abatement mechanism and the compliance around that. And we can talk about that a little bit later on and why that's so important. But it's also very important in terms of logistics and the logistics chain of custody, real world asset tokenization, and yield producing infrastructure where you don't just need to say something was there, you need to prove that it existed there when it mattered. So this is very important for real world assets in particular. So it proves that something actually existed at a particular time and place. So effectively what it does is it turns physical reality into a verifiable fact. And that's very important for enterprise workflows. Because it's anchored on Kaspa, it's secure, but Kaspa can also take the volume of transactions associated with shipping containers, for example, passing through customs at a particular physical point of or in a particular place, and you can prove that that shipping container existed in a place at a particular time, all anchored on Kaspa without surveillance. So it's very regulatory friendly, it's very business friendly, and it's one of the key initial components that's required if you want to, for example, tokenize a real world asset. Prove that it exists, prove that it actually is there. And so that's what this product is for. It's operational right now, and the first assets we're going to start tagging are a number of olive trees for olive chain, to start populating that a little bit, and that'll start quite soon. And then within DII, at the at Masdar in Abu Dhabi, at their summit, which coincided with IRENA and the World Future Energy Summit, during Sustainable Energy Week in Abu Dhabi. DII published a number of reports, which is their 2026 market surveillance report that looks at where we're going and where the market should be for energy by 2030. And the DII database is currently tracking about 800 or so large energy infrastructure projects. And we will be, as those projects are initiated, we will be tagging the proof of place and proof of existence of those actual initial projects. But it goes much further than that, and we have a pipeline of it's between 26 and 28,000 other facilities that we want to include in this initial proof of place and proof of existence of particular facilities for enterprises, all on Kaspa. So we're making it very easy for that to happen, but we've built in lots and lots of safeguards. So there's anti-spoofing mechanisms for GPS. There's a lot more to it in terms of the security and some of the attributes that we can and data that we can add into that and store. So it's one of a series of products that are used for enterprise applications. They may at some point filter into retail products by the enterprises that may choose to adopt it. So it may very well be used on some applications that you're using maybe through your insurance company or something at some point in the future. But you probably won't know that it's there. It'll just be something that runs in the background.
Have you had much interest in it yet, or have you spoken to anybody about it?
Yeah, we've spoken to a lot of people, and when we talk about some later on about some of the companies and the people that are helping us, that's helped shaped our thinking in terms of what they need, what data is relevant to them, and ensure that what we're building will matter and will be usable and will stand the test of time.
Yeah. And just to change the subject there to the next question, on the conferences, you've had the KII in Dublin, you've had one in Europe somewhere, I can't remember where, and then you've had a couple in the Middle East.
In
Austria, yeah.
In Vienna, and then in Dubai, and various other meetings throughout the year. And
we don't see much. We don't see many videos of these. I heard these are closed camera events, are they? You can't really record.
Generally, yes, because DII as a group, we have our annual summits of energy leaders, and they're usually attended by I think there was 500 people at this year's event. We keep it at a very, very high level. So it tends to be C-suite level executives from the energy and the related support industries that are invited. And we also then have a lot of closed door workshops that are not open to the public because we're talking about key infrastructure and those sorts of things don't generally interest the general public, but they're very important for energy industry executives.
Okay. I was going to ask you, between the start of these conferences and the last one, have you seen much more of an uptake from people wanting to get on board with Kaspa or know more about it? If I can ask Envy this, ladies first, and then ask you, Rory, what do you think?
Sure.
Envy, have you been to many of the conferences? Have you seen a better uptake? People want to know about Kaspa?
Yeah, but I must say, people are very interested in Kaspa, but they are very shy to talk about it, or very conservative in the way that this is something which is too good to be true.
Yeah.
I would say. So we usually have those meetings, and so we really talk with those people in private. It's not like something we would be advertising for them. It's basically between 2 to 4, maximum 4 people in a small corner where you basically talk about it on a deep level, so they could actually understand what it can be done. And what we rather do, instead of explaining what is Kaspa, is explaining how we are using it, for what we are using it, and how it can be implemented, and what are our showcases. And to be frank, when you start talking about one subject or one initiative we have, you can't stop, because you need to actually explain all the different pieces. As Rory said at the beginning, it's not one thing, it's not two things, it's a Lego. It's a Lego, and there are pieces which are known, there are pieces which are unknown. But we do know how we wanna use it, how we wanna plan it. And you should see their faces then. They are basically like, oh my god, are you serious? Are you serious? And they usually need quite time to think about it, and they go back to be skeptic again, because, as I said at the beginning, it's too good to be true. So it's a roller coaster.
So one of the things that we don't do is we don't really talk about Kaspa as a crypto. We talk about it as infrastructure, because that's the language that we talk. That's the language that our ecosystem talks about. So we talk about Kaspa as a very important new piece of infrastructure as the digital economy starts coming on board, particularly for the energy transition and the new investments that are being made, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I listened to something earlier that stuck with me, and that was that the gap between a desire and a result isn't always time, it's alignment. And I think that's true in crypto too. And to me, Kaspa represents this obsession with reducing friction technically, socially, and culturally, so that the distance between an idea and reality gets shorter. And that's where initiatives like KII matter. You know, a lot of people on crypto Twitter say, yeah, we're just all talk and everything else. But that's what KII was set up to do. It was set up to introduce Kaspa to industry and act as a market enabler. So KII is effectively a bridge that makes the ecosystem usable, understandable, and coherent to industry. And when a community gets coherent, values, tools, messages, all these things start to compound. So, you know, in terms of the conferences, are more people interested now over the past year? The answer is definitely yes, but it's shifting from, yeah, this is really cool tech, to show me the workflow, the compliance, the integration, the custody, the controls, and the time to pilot. Because there's so many of the other commercial VC-backed blockchains, based on whatever their proof of bullshit is. The interest is shifting from, they're tired of vapor. What they want is boring reliability, and that's where Kaspa's determinism and finality story plays very well. So the vibe has changed, and for us, it's particularly within the energy industry, it's less hype, more movement, more procurement, and understanding the network effects, how we can better have community coordination, both between ourselves and the industry, and then of course Kaspa Core, and then the broader Kaspa general community. And I suppose one of the things is when many people focus together, this coordination field amplifies. So with the Kaspa with the KII tie-in, that's basically open source compounding, community coordination, aligned incentives, shared narratives. And I suppose Kaspa is building a tool that the energy community can turn into its own infrastructure, where Kaspa acts as the base layer, this global network. And I suppose the real power of Kaspa and KII isn't any single mind, it's a coordinated contribution, and we're starting to see that coordinated contribution happen, certainly within our ecosystem.
It's interesting you mentioned that, just to latch onto the key points that I got from that, which was the fact that, over the past year, you've seen an increase in eagerness to want to learn about Kaspa, from it being interesting tech to let's see some actual workflow. And it comes down to you also talking about alignment as well. So I guess as I'm leading on from that, there are, I guess, a two-part to that. Is that alignment and I guess the Kaspa desire increasing, for one, because of the amount of time I guess KII have been showcasing Kaspa to these enterprises, where they've actually had a chance to be more exposed to it? And there's also, if you could quickly load up my screen, please, Joe. I saw a post recently, which I believe KII had retweeted, which came from the International Energy Agency, which stated that amid ongoing geopolitical uncertainty and renewed volatility in energy markets, energy security has once again become a top priority. Now, of course, hearing that, my first and foremost thought is, well, what's KII, DII doing with Kaspa in the energy markets? And it makes me think, well, talking about the ongoing and growing geopolitical uncertainty, is that also what has added to this acceleration of alignment to get to know more about Kaspa, do you think?
Yeah, well, I suppose in terms of roadmap clarity and initiative clarity, vague goals create vague outcomes. So, what we have to try and show is, what does success look like in concrete terms? And one of the things is, because we, the IEA report that came out, I think in November or December, I think it was November, is that the future is built in the present term, and what we want to do is we don't want to choke the process with obsession. But we want to ensure that people care deeply, but don't grip so hard that you stop thinking clearly. And signals matter. So the signals that are coming from the IEA, the signals that are coming from the AI industry, and so on. These signals are very important. But the steps towards contribution, education, collaboration, and then ultimately shipping usable systems for industry matter more. These steps actually matter more. So alignment looks like action, and that's quite important. In terms of the IEA report, I'm just bringing it up here in front of me, just to remind myself of it. And actually, DII have written some very interesting reports that have been published over the last 2 or 3 months that are very interesting. But let me just have a look at this. Yeah. So. Are geopolitical tensions driving demand for energy security? The answer is absolutely yes. And you can see that constantly. So you see that with what's happening with Venezuela. Energy is being weaponized. You saw that with the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. That was weaponized because of geopolitical tensions. And wanting to put pressure, particularly on Germany, in terms of its energy security of supply. So the IEA has repeatedly framed energy as being at the heart of geopolitical tensions, and that's been the case for the last 50 years. Particularly, there's been a lot of wars and a lot of everything else. So, in terms of KII and the Kaspa angle, yes, those geopolitical tensions are very important. And what that means is that the world needs to trust infrastructure that works across borders, particularly when it comes to energy. Because energy, particularly through this energy transition, is extremely important, because the supply chain routes are changing. So we're moving from systems that were centralized by design to where the cheapest forms of energy are coming from, and they're coming from places like the desert environments, or the Middle East in particular. So the problem is, you have all of these new and sustainable aviation fuel and things like that. The problem is, you need to have an infrastructure that works, and when systems fragment, you either A, centralize trust in a few intermediaries, or B, use neutral, verifiable rails. And Kaspa is a global neutral rail. and because of its characteristics, moving towards real-time decentralization, energy works in real time. When an electron is produced, it has to be consumed pretty much in real time, or else put in storage, or turned into something else. So geopolitics, and particularly energy geopolitics, increases the value of systems that are verifiable without permission. So I hope that just gives you a little insight in terms of the geopolitics, as well as trying to move away from the petrodollar standard.
Yeah, no, that was a great insight. I've seen kind of what I do with my own community. I've seen a lot of the documentation that with the VIP community that I have. I've seen a lot of documentation that is coming from like BNY Mellon, coming from Baker McKinsey, that are talking about that what these big institutions, which for those watching, to give some background on at least some of those institutions, Baker McKinsey, to my knowledge, their client list is like 90% of the Fortune 500. So I think a leading law firm as well.
Yeah, they were my law firm.
Oh, damn. Well, there you go. The connections are there. And if you could just very briefly, Joe, once again, just load up my screen that I had it loaded. There was a report that I saw from Baker McKinsey, which stated a number of the following things, which I think closely correlates to what I see DRI and KII doing, which talks about the rise of data centers, particularly sustainable ones, which is very important. And also when looking ahead for this year in 2026, it talks about the ones that will be rewarded are those who can transform legal and regulatory challenges into efficiencies. And I'm just thinking that's what I'm seeing Walkcore doing right now, as they allow banks to retain their own self-sovereignty. And then with KII and the data centers, of course, we are seeing, we saw in their recent presentation last week, where they had Kaspa, as I quickly shift screen, Kaspa, in the presentation right here, had Kaspa as the virtual layer and settlement as well. So it gets it almost once more reiterated my belief that the industrial side of what's happening with Kaspa, the focus is in the right areas, and it seems to be quite a global alignment, that word again, in regards to what is needed to be built right now.
Yeah, so we can frame this very simply. AI is forcing a complete rewrite of energy economics, because data centers are energy factories. And as that grows, two things matter. Procuring clean energy credibly, and then settling and auditing those claims at scale. But it also drives lots of other things in terms of these hyperscale type data centers that they consume vast amounts of energy, and increasingly they need to build them very, very quickly, and they're using fossil fuels to do so. So they also have to they have a procurement and attribution problem. So they need to have, generally because ESG and climate impact are increasingly becoming part of, particularly for public companies, they're become part of their annual reports and financial reporting mechanisms. That proof of clean energy sourcing, the certificates and contracts become very important. And this is where Kaspa fits, and where some of the KII projects fit in quite nicely, because you need to have auditability. You need to have verifiable receipts for claims, especially across borders and vendors. And in terms of market tooling, it needs to be more granular, high frequency markets instead of quarterly paperwork. So DAI recently did a publication on it was called AI. I'm just trying to recall the name of it. It was called Common User Infrastructure. So how can these hyperscale data centers use common infrastructure and bankability categories in terms of the risk and control associated with that, and that's before we even get into AI, and automated agents doing their own financial transactions, which is a whole other topic. So in the latest DII report that's available on DII-desertenergy.org, some great reports there if people are interested in it. But the latest MENA outlook that was published last week, it points to accelerating renewables and storage deployment at real scale, at real velocity, literally as fast as copper can be mined from the ground, to manufacture this, which increases the need for better settlement and proof layers for clean trade. And that's not only for clean trade around energy, it's for all of the other associated trades. That there needs to be a full end-to-end accountability and auditability at scale for these new hyperscalers to operate as we move into the AI economy.
Yeah. Rory, I'll show you something here on Warp Core. I know you spoke about it before, but just for people who don't know, you tested this middleware for 6 months yourself, KII, and then you released it for sandbox testing. I think you said you have 7 financial institutions that are testing at the moment. I'm just wondering, have you got any feedback from them? Or first off, can you explain what Warp Core is? And then I'd like to know, have you got any feedback? And I'd also like to know why you tagged XRP, Cardano, and XLM at the bottom. Is that just to wind them up?
The approach they're taking is the wrong approach. They're trying to put in place entirely new systems for banking institutions, many of which have old banking ledgers, like the one that I showed at the beginning, or have big old mainframe systems that are running on emulators to keep themselves operational, because the time to transition and the investment required to upgrade systems is huge. There's a lot of regulatory uncertainty, and ISO 222 is basically this new structured language that banks are now required to use to describe payments and financial events.
It's 23 hours.
Oh, great.
Sorry.
This is a long podcast. 23 hours. That must be a record. So let's simplify Warp Core and what it is. Warp Core is an interoperability layer that translates the language of banking messages, which is called ISO 222, into a blockchain-ready workflow, and then back again after an event has been recorded on the Kaspa block DAG, so institutions can safely test before it touches anything in production. So that's what the sandboxes are for right now. ISO is the structured language that banks use. It's become the global standard, and Warp Core effectively is a bridge / translator that translates those messages to interact with modern ledger rails, i.e. Kaspa, and right now we're doing it in a controlled environment. So let's maybe use some analogies. Now, this is not financial advice or anything else, so I have to put some accuracy caveats into this. So let's look at it in 4 analogies. So there's let's start with the first, a notary. most people are familiar with a notary. So a court clerk or a registered notary will timestamp a document. So what effectively WarpCore does is it acts like this notary who stamps each filing with an unforgeable time and public docket entry. And that stamp or anchor provides exactly when a record existed, and then anyone can verify its chain of custody later. So this, and I suppose the caveat on this is a technical tamper evident notarization. It's not an automatic legal notarization that's recognized in every jurisdiction. But because we require licenses and all sorts of things to do that over time. The second is settlement finality. And this is very important in understanding WarpCore and Kaspa. So if you think of finality as you walk into a bank with cash and you hand it over at the teller's window, you've suddenly had finality of settlement. You've paid into an account. So finality is the instant the teller hands you cash, and after that handover, you can't rewind the transfer unless you quickly try and take it back, at which point you're a bank robber. So WarpCore gives the same unambiguous no undo moment for on-ledger transfers. And here it follows a whole bunch of technical and acronyms and concepts and economic and legal finalities, but they also all depend on rule books and applicable laws in each individual country. The next aspect is netting. So I suppose the best way to describe netting is you're in the bar, you've had a nice night out at Wolfie's, and he's kindly had a tab open for you for the night, and the tab is closed at the end of the night at the bar. So many rounds get bought, and at midnight the bar tallies who owns what, who owes whom what, and one net payment settles everyone's bar tab. So WarpCore can mirror this by aggregating those flows and settling a single net obligation. So what the netting does is it cuts the gross flows and credit usage, but it needs clear rules and central settlement guarantees. So it's slightly different from a real-time gross settlement, but I suppose it's similar to closing the tab at the end of the night. Who owes what banks have traded through the day, but we're providing that netting and the ability to audit that pretty fast and in real time. And then the last thing is the settlement window. And how would we describe that? That's basically it's when the train departs. Train departure slots on a timetable. So where batches of transactions finalize together on a scheduled departure, WarpCore can run both continuous rails in terms of real-time settlement, or windowed multi-cycle settlement windows, depending on the particular financial instrument and the particular market practice. So there's different trade-offs in terms of throughput versus latency, real intraday liquidity within financial institutions, and then pre-funding rules that materially affect the behavior in practice. So they're the caveats, but I hope those analogies have described what WarpCore actually does. It's a message translator for banks that records immutably the transactions pretty quickly.
You decided not to. Sorry, Jay. You decided not to go to the banks and ask them to change a lot of stuff. You decided to leave the banks alone, the way they do things, and just added in a bit of software in the middle.
Yeah.
So they don't have to change anything.
Yeah, so they keep all of their existing anti-money laundering and compliance workflows, because most of them are already up. They're all supposed to be now operating on the ISO 20022 data set. But organizations like the FCA and MAS in Singapore are adding new data points for stable coins and digital assets and those sorts of things. So we can still record those transactions using WarpCore, irrespective of what the digital assets are or what the settlement mechanism is. So a quick update on where WarpCore is right now. It's running in a private sandbox with extremely tight controls, with repeatable tests. It's just pure engineering, and the goal is simple: is to prove ISO 20022 and Kaspa interoperability in a way that institutions and regulators can actually evaluate. ISO 20022 is the global standard for this rich messaging, but what we're doing is we're simply recording the receipts. So we think what XRP and them trying to sell all sorts of ways of doing everything digitally is overkill, and it's very difficult for banks to retool for. So we're doing everything on a staged basis. So we'll move from a private sandbox to public institutional test environments and regulatory sandboxes where we're eligible, so we can test with the right guardrails, with the right partners, with the full oversight of regulatory authorities. And there's several that we're exploring right now. So there's the FCA regulatory sandbox in the UK, who are moving towards supervised testing. There's Singapore. There's a serious market shift for structured, supervised fintech testing, and they have what they call the MAS sandbox, which is on our shortlist. Abu Dhabi Global Markets have a thing called RegLab, which is another program we're evaluating for controlled institutional testing. And Dubai also has a licensed sandbox program to test innovative financial products and services in DIFC, the Dubai International Financial Services City. So we'll be exploring that. There's a lot of testing licenses that are required. You have to go through a lot of regulatory hurdles to get through a lot of this. In Europe, there's also a lot of public institutional sandboxes that are available as well. But what we're working for is, or what we're working with is the SWIFT My Standards messaging specifications and testing collaboration protocols. So they have, so SWIFT have a thing called My Standards, and it's a collaborative platform to create, share, and test messaging and support open ISO 20022 adoption. And we're aligning with that industry tooling, particularly the SWIFT My Standards. But there's also, in the US, there's the US Federal Reserve. They have a thing called FedWire. And they have what's called a My Standards readiness portal for testing. We're paying attention to major institutional migrations, like FedWire's testing approach, because it sets expectations for quality and readiness. But our system, we're building step by step, and going through these sandbox experiments. And we've designed WarpCore end to end, but at the moment we're going to the most important part, which is the end step, which is the receipt. So an event happens on an existing financial institution system, and we're recording the receipts. So that's the very, very simple integration for the banks. rather than having to rip apart legacy systems and start all over. So we've taken a completely different approach to all of the other systems out there, one that's more readily adoptable. And this is based on feedback directly from very large financial institutions.
Which ones?
I'm not going to say.
And
You're
one more.
gonna try. You're gonna try.
I got to try. Yeah. Well, one more question, just a quick question. So you've done 6 months of testing. The financial institutions for you are going to do another 6 months testing. How long before do you think, if you had to guess, before this would be active in out in the real world?
12 months plus.
Yeah.
VPROGs and Covenants plus and real-time decentralization kind of change a lot of things, because we can build Covenant vaults, for example, which integrate on a very interesting way with WarpCore from the research and development that we're doing, and real-time decentralization. It has a lot of really interesting applications in terms of high frequency markets.
That's great. Jay, you had a question?
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. So my takeaway from that is, WarpCore, it removes all the nitty gritty thing that banks don't like, which is having to adopt something new. It just has that, they have all their software that perfectly works. How it is in Kaspa. WarpCore just kind of as that middleman, which is perfect, and also the part that basically banks can just basically buy beers at Wolfie's, work from that as well, which is brilliant stuff. So WarpCore sounds very interesting.
You could have a Bitcoin maxi or somebody walking into the bank and transferring money, and it'd be going through Kaspa instead of Swift. Would that be the way it worked? And they wouldn't know the difference.
It would go through the banking system. It would go through Swift if they use these enriched fields that they want to include. And Swift have only in the last week or so, they've been making a lot of announcements about things that they're doing on blockchain. But ultimately, we have a much simpler system for banks and auditors to have a very easy and simple integration and simple sort of put the toe in the water into the digital ledger world or the block DAG world with Kaspa. So awesome. we've started at a place that the banks really like, because it gives them this great auditability, and we have an audit kit developed for the banks that eventually will probably run on AI, but nevertheless the audit kit is part of something that we've developed for WarpCore.
Awesome. I am going to quickly segue and ask a question to Invi, if that's okay. So going full circle now back to where we were starting at with the stream, but when Rory was having his technical difficulties, we wanted to hear, if possible, a bit more about KII, what's happening with that. And I also saw a question which asked, it would be a great achievement, of course, and how do you guys plan to do it? Would it be with SpaceX, Starlink, something like that? How would KII function?
Oh, yeah. Every single time when we start talking about KII,
Rory just crashes.
Okay, so...
sorry, am I back, by the way?
Yeah.
Back from the outer space. KII stands for Kaspa Orbital Network Initiative. So this is a satellite. It started like a CubeSat, small satellite on lower orbit, which we are planning to use as basically passive validator for first transaction in space. So it's a very ambitious program, and we would like to put it up as soon as possible. So you were asking which partners we are planning to launch it. That's something we don't want to say. Yeah.
There's a lot of commercial sensitivity. Actually, just as a very quick segue, Starlink have just over 10,000 satellites in low Earth orbit, and in recent weeks, the United Nations International Telecoms Union have granted China permission to launch 97,500 new satellites into space.
Damn. Wow.
So that's just a little segue as to why space is so important.
And one of those will be Kaspa.
One to start with.
Yeah, to start with, of course.
So I'll let Trezzy go and explain a little bit more if she wants to share some more.
That's the issue with me. I rather not share anything, or I go into very deep details, and we're going to spend here several hours.
That's fine.
So that's the issue with me. So how to make it short? Okay, so there is a few phases we are focusing right now on. The first thing is actually using as a learning kit, as something which needs to be tested and which needs to I would say it.
Reduce risk.
Yeah, reduce risks, and I never know. Rory, I was kind of shy talking in front of Rory as well, because he has better wording for it, and so right now there is a lot of things we are focusing right now. So it's the primary, it's a funding, secondary, it's finding partners and institutions, and when we talk about institution, I mean technology institution and also educational institutions. Those partners are very important for us, because with the knowledge we do have, and with the technology we are planning to use, which is already there or actually needs to be kind of designed for our special causes. I don't know.
It's so hard to explain it without saying too much.
Let me just break down. So phase one is deliberately about risk reduction and learning the real world space process. We already have a lot of experience in doing that, but it requires a lot of things in terms of permitting, frequency coordination, launch paperwork, and learning those operations and how you interact with launch partners and ground communications before we can scale. So phase one is a CubeSat. We already own it, and that will go into low Earth orbit, which is what, Trezzy?
550. I don't know what you're asking for, but
it'll be about 550 kilometers high, and that'll go on a rideshare launch with one of the operators who offer ride shares.
Is it being launched from America or China or Dublin?
It's going to be Asia or America or something like that.
And do you have a potential launch date approaching, or is that still too early to call that?
It's
too early.
It's too early to call because the paperwork and licenses required are very significant. You also have to do a lot of testing, because if you're putting a payload on a rocket and it doesn't deploy properly, you can interrupt other assets that are on the rideshare. And these things have to be tested. They have to be literally shaken apart to understand, how they will behave when the actual event happens. So
ordering the shipping, the transportation is the easiest part.
Yeah. So right now, phase one is about approving the hard parts. And that's how space programs actually get done in terms of hardware, launch integration, and the ops. So if we can't achieve phase one cleanly, then phase two shouldn't exist. Do you want to talk a bit about phase two, Terezi?
Okay, that's the network step, which we want to move from a single demo satellite to 4 satellite constellation. So then we can test the real constellation operations and redundancy and repeatability. And the primer purpose and development testbed, which supposed to be done on the real time on orbit, which can be tested on the ground, and in a control environment, kind of. To put together basically the software and hardware validation procedures and learn how to scale to have a commitment for the larger deployment.
So phase two is the network step, where we move from a single demo satellite that doesn't do very much because it has windows where it can only communicate. So we can only take a very, very light payload on the node to a much more sophisticated 4 satellite constellation, and to test real constellation operations in different configurations. So initially we'll start with a string of pearls configuration, and then we'll move it into different positions, and they take quite a bit of time to move. So we need to work on the propellant systems and what positions we want to do, so that we can understand network behavior and so on. And this is very important for Kaspa, because we want to understand how latency affects the system, particularly the DAG reordering. And at phase 2 is where we'll use optical and laser interactions as a core objective. We'll see how these optical links from space to ground or satellite to satellite for higher data rates and new communications capabilities. And there's a lot of key engineering validations for both Kaspa, for things like DAGNITE in particular, but also to understand what would happen if there's a network split because of communications delays, and to some extent to test how you can have interoptical links with something like Starlink or the 97,000 satellites that the Chinese are putting in orbit, or potentially with an AI data center in orbit. So there's a lot of interesting testing in R&D, and I think Michael Sutton and Jonathan will have a lot of fun testing the platform So it will be ostensibly be for a lot of testing of how Kaspa operates, particularly at 100 blocks per second. That's a lot of data transfer. It's a lot of reorgs of the block DAG. It's also quite expensive. The minimum budget is about 16 million euros for the program slice, for the spacecraft build and qualification and the optical payload development. And we'll have other payloads on the satellites for other ground monitoring. That will link back to things like GeoSeal, for example, but a much later version, much more advanced version of GeoSeal for the future.
So
I wouldn't say half of those things what Rory shared with you guys. Like, I think he's sharing too much.
I have seen a few questions in the chat though. People are just trying to, I guess, get a gauge into the reasoning behind launching a node in space. Like, what benefit does that provide? I said, look, what is satellite for the centralized communication network as compared to Starlink? And there'll be other questions I've been seeing from Dell as well. Can I just try to get a closer understanding to, I guess, the overall mission and reasoning for why is KII excited, and why should we be excited about launching a node in space? What benefits does that provide?
Yeah. Is it a competitor to Starlink? No. Absolutely not. You have to go back and look what Kaspa is. Kaspa is a global decentralized network that requires a lot of redundancy and security. The energy industry, particularly in MENA, is vulnerable to communication problems. If geopolitical issues become a problem, the energy systems still have to run and data still has to be recorded if they're connected to Kaspa. And if fiber links were sabotaged or damaged, or if there was a black swan event, we need to keep Kaspa alive. So it's very important for security and redundancy. So I didn't see the.
Oh, sorry. You want to go back? The process has been done thousands of times before. Yeah, that's correct. It has been, but it hasn't actually carried a Kaspa node or some of the other payload data that we want to to use for other reasons related to the energy sector. So yes, it's been done lots of times before, but we want to do something slightly different, and we also need to test. With real life assets, Kaspa and the block DAG and how it reacts in a real environment. We can simulate a lot of things, but actually doing it for real is very important. Why are we interested in doing it? Well, as more and more communications become space-based, and we see Starlink, as more and more power networks become decentralized and detached from the grid. So for power to X type projects, data connectivity is very important from that perspective as well. And if we're looking at an ultra high speed real-time decentralization network with Kaspa, it has to have additional network supporting capabilities far beyond people running nodes in their homes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There is a one thing we were working on last year, which was basically the idea: what would happen if there was a blackout, and how we see it in Spain, where people didn't have any cash they couldn't use ATM, couldn't use. So they basically had no way how to pay for anything.
Mm.
So what would happen if we start using crypto for that kind of payments, and then blackout happened? So it was one of the cases we got a question how we would react, how we would do it, and we came up with a solution as well. So that's something also a missing piece of a puzzle in this case.
Okay. Will there be miners?
As the
Miners?
space economy increases in scale and scope, and we're serious about Kaspa being a serious piece of global infrastructure, space is something that we simply can't overlook or avoid. If we want Kaspa to be realized as a global underpinning, a serious piece of network infrastructure that's handling high value, high volume transactions.
Okay. Would you have any Kaspa miners on these satellites besides nodes, or would that be not possible?
Yeah, it's possible. There's no reason why not. It's very much dependent on the energy usage profile, and the hardware. Particularly like an ASIC unit being rad hardened for space.
Okay. No, thanks for that on the KII. Just another couple of questions before we take some from the viewers. On you say the DII, they have 130 partners, is it? I think.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah, and you have you're calling it the KII Special Forces. That's a group of about 30 energy companies, is it? And what are these guys?
I mentioned our special forces group in a throwaway.
Oh, is that a secret?
On blockchain, but no, it's not any particular secret. But KI special forces are very important. So, KI special forces. It's not a secret army group. It's not for any of the conspiracy theories that if you put Grok into conspiracy mode, it's not for anything nefarious or anything like that. There's no military connotations or anything like that. It's a term that Paul came up with, and it kind of stuck. But effectively, what KI Forces is, it's a group of about 30 or so senior energy industry figures, from CEO level to lawyers, to technologists, to investors and banks who are involved in the energy ecosystem within DII. And effectively, they're the people who help us identify the real pain points, assist us with opening doors, and critically ensure that what we're building is future-proof. And that's the key word. So energy is a long-term critical infrastructure, and the transition is bringing these giga projects. So the energy transition is bringing giga projects online that need speed and security and stability for decades. And that's a reason why we've chosen to avoid fragile, constantly changing execution environments like EVM that reduce and we want to reduce the reliance on external protocols. So the Special Forces Group help us make sure that the Kaspa-based systems can survive time, scale, and real-world industrial pressure. So energy assets don't operate on crypto timelines; they operate on decades. And with these 800 or so new energy transition projects, some of which are mega scale to gigascale projects, and as they're coming online, it's massive amounts of solar, storage, hydrogen, new grids, new ways of storing and moving energy, data data center energy systems, projects that are going to be operating in 20, 30, 40 years from now. And those projects need technology that's fast, secure, and stable enough to survive time. And one of the main roles of KII Special Forces is to stop us building short-term solutions for a long-term industry. So what they specifically help with is our stress testing assumptions over multi-decade life cycles. Will this work when the asset is half depreciated? And can we change things if the regulatory environments change? And then their job is to challenge anything that we propose that's based on fragile middlewares or layer 2s or frequently changing protocol rules or any third-party roadmaps that are outside our control. So, and effectively, energy companies don't want to build their core systems every time a protocol changes. And we've seen this where a lot of projects have come and gone with EVM-based systems with constant upgrades and forks and fragmentation. And that's fine for applications and short-term DeFi protocols and those sorts of things, but it's not fine for critical infrastructure. So Kaspa gives us something rare. It's a base layer that prioritizes determinism, ordering, security at scale without relying on a constantly mutating execution environment. So, we should be at the point with going to 100 BPS, Covenants plus vprogs, and then whatever else Jonathan and Michael and Ori and Ival and all the other guys are dreaming up. We need to make sure that the system will last and will continue to work for a long time and will provide the security for a long time. And what Special Forces care about are fewer moving parts, less upgrade risk, clear auditable behavior over time, and no dependency on protocol politics. So they help us validate that our approach aligns with how real infrastructure operators think. Now, we are and have been real infrastructure operators, but these guys are building multi-billion-dollar projects. The tagline for DII's conference last year for 2030 was moving from billions of dollars of investment to trillions of dollars of investment. So what we're doing is we're not just building for the energy projects, we're building for the industrial supply chains also that go around them. So equipment manufacturers, EPC contractors, so that we can actually take an EPC contract is the type of contract that's used if you're going to build a power plant or a water desalination plant and everything else. So we want to have programmability and take these huge, big, thick documents and bring them online and digitize them so that your disputes become very, very difficult to have and much less costly. There's other guys in there in terms of commodity and certificate traders, financiers, insurers, and I suppose the key point is if the base layer fractures, then the supply chain fractures, and we have this very clear loop with the Special Forces that influence what KII actually builds. And it has 4 steps. So it's a giga project reality check. Will this work for assets worth billions of dollars? The second check is the technology longevity check, which is, can this survive protocol churn? The third is operational resilience. Can this operate through political, regulatory, or market shocks? And if it can't answer any of those questions, then we don't build it or we don't ship it, and they won't use it. So Why does this make KI fundamentally different from other foundations that are involved with crypto projects? Most crypto projects optimize for composability and speed of iteration, where we're optimizing for longevity, reliability, and institutional survival. And the Special Forces Group exists to keep us aligned with that reality.
Okay. I know that when you let that slip, it was 4 a.m. in the morning, I think, when you were talking. So you also let something else slip. You said that one of the people, one of the companies or one of the members of the Special Forces, the KII Special Force, he was asking you, is there stable coins on Kaspa yet? And you said no. And he wanted to go off and try and sort it himself or talk to someone about it. Was that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Just yeah.
That's somebody within our group was very concerned about how we can bring and increase the speed of stablecoins coming on board, and they set up a small subgroup amongst themselves to work on that, and they're also taking up the mantle of as industry players to make approaches to organizations like Fireblocks and things like that, which I understand was talked about by Wolfie on last night's X Space. So it's to bring a little bit of institutional and industry pressure to try and accelerate that, because without the institutional custody capabilities that these people offer, institutions won't go near Kaspa until Fireblocks style custody is available. And certainly organizations and the banks, the banks, and with the anti-money laundering, KYC, anti-terrorism stuff, all of that has to be gone through and checked, and it's very important for the financial institutions that back or work with Tether that all of those things are dealt with, and that that Kaspa can't be used to subvert any of these things.
I guess that's the I would say the issue with Kaspa, not the right word I'm looking for, but because of Kaspa, what the technology itself is, old, since Bitcoin's inception, sort of dating back, the actual asset in question, as Envy was saying earlier, it sounds too good to be true, and because it's a relatively newly established project, it's not been battle tested enough to where there is enough willingness and trust. And I guess the general crypto space is still, while being more accepted, it's still a bit of a hurdle and leap of faith for TradFi to really want to get in when there are still so many regulatory barriers that are slowing that down.
Yeah, and one of the big issues is Bitcoin gets a free ride because it's very well established with a lot of institutions. But when you go as Kaspa to apply to an institution, they want to know your registered office, they want to know who your CEO is, they want to know all of the history of the executive management team. They want all the background checks done in terms of anti-money laundering and all of that sort of stuff.
This is not a hypothetical question. This is actually happened to us.
Yeah, lots of times.
I've seen. I know. It's dating back to a while now. Actually, I'm pretty sure there was a European exchange or an entity in Europe that had tried to file, I think it was MiCA compliance or something along that lines, with Kaspa, and as you do when you're filing with it, it's just because the space has become so become so centralized. It's often all these questions about executive branches, where its founding isn't as like what Kaspa is, none of that. So how And then, but because of how the space has shifted from Bitcoin's inception, it has created a block mentally and even in a sense physically for Kaspa to kind of break into these spaces, which makes it much more difficult as well.
Yeah, and you need to work with credible institutions. You have to have a clear security model, a clear compliance posture, and a clear integration plan that doesn't create support burdens for any of these institutions. That's a very, very difficult challenge to overcome with a decentralized project, and it's one that we constantly argue about. But because the precedent has been set with Bitcoin, that precedent is something that we can actually rely upon. But it's often very, very difficult to, because a lot of the forms you have to fill out, it's very difficult to actually, you have to write a whole bunch of additional information to say why we can't actually provide this information.
It makes complete sense. Okay, well, we will get to some community questions because I've been listening patiently for a while, but there is one more that I wanted to ask. Oh,
sorry,
go on.
No, just when you were in Dublin, Rory, you talked about Mongolia having the best horizontal ionizing radiation, and you were talking about building Kaspa mining center powered by solar energy over there. I think, has that started, or are you still planning to do that?
Yeah, well, we're more looking at power to X solutions. I'll speak to the Mongolia question in a moment. The market that we're more interested in right now is the low-hanging fruit market, which is there's lots and lots and lots of permitted, ready to be built, bankable, financeable projects that exist. Lots of them, in fact, all across the Middle East. But the problem is the power grids haven't arrived, or the project now requires solar plus storage, or it requires some other things. But in most cases, it's because the grid hasn't been built, and grid building takes time. Developing a project and getting it permitted and everything else takes a lot less time. But there's a lot of lead up required, and grid modeling and socioeconomic analysis that's required by grid operators to spend, in many cases, public money on building new power grid infrastructure, that will ultimately end up adding to the transmission charges of the end users' bills. So there's a lot of projects that are stranded. And those projects are perfect to be developed out because they'll get a better return on their investment by doing a power to X. So power to X being green hydrogen potentially, or ammonia, or water desalination, or AI, or crypto mining. So we're interested in that low-hanging fruit from an energy industry perspective. If we can have more distributed data centers, that takes an awful lot of pressure off the power grid in terms of having to try and directly integrate these hyperscale data centers into the grid. If we can have more distributed, decentralized data centers that can work again with satellite or fiber. It's a lot easier to roll out a fiber cable and build power lines out to a facility. But with the propagation of Starlink and all this new space infrastructure this new space race that's happening, and Blue Origin, for example, want to launch several thousand satellites, and they'll have direct backhauls to things like AWS data centers and things like that. So providing using the power to X for compute or crypto mining or AI is a very good business case. for those ready to be built assets, and that will then take power, or that will take pressure off the existing power grid. So given DII's mission, which is to promote the development of renewable energy sources, being able to suggest to these developers, well, you can actually probably get a better return on your investment because you're building the power, the power plant in the best locations where the resources are available at very low prices. You may actually end up getting a much better return by having a data center built adjacent to your facility, or a green hydrogen plant, or whatever else it might actually be, and these projects instantly become bankable, and then it has the additional bonus of taking pressure off the power grid for new integrated data centers. So it's more of a distributed data and distributed mining, utilizing those underutilized, very cheap energy resources. If it's profitable at 1.3% or 1.3 cent per kilowatt hour to build and operate one of these plants, that power going directly, bypassing all of the power grid and transmission fees and everything else, that provides very, very cheap energy to crypto mining and AI data centers, because you're bypassing all of those additional infrastructure layers that increase the cost of energy to the facility. So about Mongolia. Mongolia is about half the size of Western Europe. It shares a border with Russia and China. It has a population of 3 million people. So similar population to that of Dublin, spread across all of, basically the same size as Western Europe. And they have a free trade zone and the Gobi Desert. Very, very close to China. So there's a big race on the Chinese side of the border in Inner Mongolia to build data centers and renewable energy assets on the Inner Mongolia side, on the Chinese side, to support the Chinese market. But obviously, Mongolia presents a very interesting strategic opportunity to build data centers outside the control of China, using cheap energy at similar prices to that of building in Saudi or UAE, at similar sort of price levels that can actually have close physical connections in terms of data to service the Chinese market, without actually physically being in China and being subject to the controls of China. So Mongolia is very strategically important in the future going forward to service the Chinese market, and so we'll be looking at that, because also crypto mining is I suppose banned in China. So the same with deploying nodes and things like that. We want to make sure that, there's an opportunity there to provide services into the Chinese market in a non-China controlled country, and those services can also be provided to South Korea as well, for example, and Japan. Because Japan doesn't have sufficient land mass or space to actually deploy these large scale solar infrastructures. So we can build cables and everything else to support that, but also being geographically closer means that data has less distance to travel.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome stuff. Well, Thank you very much for that. We're going to get into some community questions now to wrap up today's insane action-packed and alpha blockchain banter second episode edition. The first one, as you can see on screen, comes from LB. We get it. It's going to be our thing, I'm sure. Which is, of course, to both of you, Rory and Envy, who you believe, or are you, the Kaspa wallet one? The one that currently, as I'm trying to preload it now,
How much do they have?
1.3 billion Kaspa, give or take.
Something like that, yeah. We should
double
probably be
check.
more specific. Is it Rory or Envy or KII?
Or one
together?
of the companies
Yeah, or
that
something.
are associated with DII. Yes, they got 1.32 billion. And actually today they accumulated another, how much was it? Another 2.62 million Kaspa earlier today. So, yeah.
That's a lot. That's
Yeah,
a lot.
oh yeah,
You
that's
know,
a lot of Kaspa.
Whoever it is, I'm single.
You know what? Me too, please.
No, it's not us. We are not in. We are. I can safely say we're not in the top 10 holders of Kaspa.
Okay.
What do you mean top 10? Where are you? Top 20? Top 15?
We believe in Kaspa enough to have invested in Kaspa. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh,
Okay.
perfect.
There's a comment there. My Spanish is a bit rusty. I don't know. have to
Can
get the
you
translator.
activate subtitles for the Spanish
No,
community?
it's not that
I
advanced.
can find the question and use good old trusty Google Translate. That'll work. It says, hello. Oh, it's just talking about requesting for subtitles. That's all. It says, hello,
okay.
subtitles cannot be activated. Remember that there's a Hispanic community here. We apologize for that. Typically, YouTube should, I mean, I know from my content, I get the question occasionally. Sometimes YouTube
sometimes
does
they're on, yeah.
give the subtitles for, Spanish and French and other, but sometimes it just doesn't. Lack consistency, I guess, for YouTube. But,
I think it's very important for the Kaspa community generally to ensure that we are actively promoting Kaspa in other languages, particularly Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, China, Russian and Chinese and Japanese. They're incredible markets, and I know there are very active communities on Telegram. But I think it would be great if we could see, a Spanish version of and Portuguese version of blockchain banter emerge. I think that would be a wonderful.
Give it. I'm sure. Give it time. I mean, we want to be the number one, of course, but I'm sure give it time. That the blockchain banter name in Kaspa is definitely on an expansion task, and hopefully we'll play a big part in that as well. There's another question here which comes from Robbie O'Brien. It's quite a long kind of statement into a question, which basically starts off by him saying that the head of institutional sales for Bitwise gave the wealth management firm of his a talk about crypto. And the main question he got to ask out of the talk was, why would an institution transition from their current layer 1 or layer 2 tokenization platform or a centralized blockchain platform to a decentralized alternative that solves proof of work scaling? Which seemingly Bitwise did not understand the point that Robbie was getting at, which is, Kaspa kind of already does solve that. But his question is, what is the main benefit or reason to have a decentralized smart contract system for institutions to use over current Ethereum or layer 2 options?
I think most educated members of the Kaspa community can answer that for themselves.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They're watching this show for a reason. It's because of the attributes that Kaspa has. It has all the attributes of Bitcoin, but it also has the programmability of Ethereum, without the decentralization risk. But it's so fragmented. We've seen projects that started on Ethereum that then moved to Polygon, and are now talking with us about moving to Kaspa because of the scalability aspect. But they also like the decentralization and network resilience and everything else associated with proof of work.
And
in many cases, the projects just haven't been able to scale.
Yeah, which I guess comes down to the bottlenecking of the protocol that they're currently on top of, is why they've been unable to scale. And
it's the longevity of the projects. If a company or an industrial player wants to seriously use blockchain technology, we've seen lots of projects fail. We've seen. I think it was the SUI network went down the other day because they didn't pay their AWS bill. We've had how many restarts of Solana? So we have all the attributes of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And Ethereum is going through another phase where you have Vitalik suddenly has a new idea and they rush out something new.
It was like Pegasus or something that came out last year, which was meant to be the next big thing for institutions, which only ended up making it more expensive or something like that. I can't even remember. I remember talking about it last year, and now Vitalik talking about how they've now solved the blockchain trilemma with ZK as well. And I'm just like,
yeah. Well, we're going to a speed that's unbelievably fast, that's unbelievably scalable, and if you're too big or multiple big institutions that are working across the world in any industry, having the permissionless public blockchain is very important, because there's no centralized authority. It's pretty much impossible for the Kaspa network to shut down. So the Kaspa network can only get stronger over time.
You asked that question there, did you?
Yeah, that was the one that we were referring to. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. There was one more question I saw, if you're able to find it during time, which was is a question that was asked a couple of times actually, but it was just asking what is Kaspa's greatest risk from your perspective?
Its greatest risk.
Yeah. We know the infrastructure is fantastic. We know what it stands for. We know the mission it's trying to solve. We see that the adoption started to scale. So what would be the risk to Kaspa right now, the greatest risk to the project?
There's quite a few. It's a great question. There's always risks. There's risks that the network could end up being fragmented with lots of L2s that have to rely on other virtual machine protocols that have to be updated and upgraded over time. That's a risk if you're working directly on the L1 all the time. I think that's a great benefit to users. So I see that as reducing risk. Adoption is a big one, but we're trying to work on that, as are many other people, and we see the hackathon or the Kaspathon with 200 people wanting to develop is incredible. I suppose there are some risks in terms of some of the technology choices that are made going forward, like Cairo, for example. I'd say I would estimate there's maybe only 2,500 people who are familiar with Cairo. So that's potentially a risk in terms of coding and that type of stuff. ASIC support going forward, more efficient ASICs. Will the ASIC manufacturers continue to manufacture more and better and faster and more energy efficient ASIC units, and particularly with the shortage that's been created in terms of semiconductors and memory and all of those sorts of things, and the price of those increasing, that's probably a short-term issue that must be considered. But to offset that, K-heavy hash is optical mining ready, and Terezi has a very interesting job in that she's the general manager of a semiconductor company. If you want to explain a little bit about that and some custom silicon.
Yeah, that was. I would actually, that would be my first choice of answer for this question is the hardware. If you can't trust the hardware, you can't trust the system. That's why we are working on interesting designs of our own chip architecture and custom silicon. Yeah.
And that's quite important because we need to link trusted hardware in industry or industrial processes, and digital twins, as digital twinning is becoming more important, and the Kaspa ledger, so that physical verifiable events can be verified and not just reported. So specific hardware and software that can be actually introduced into industrial processes is a potential bottleneck to adoption. But that's one that we're on, and Terezi's company, we have a partnership there, and we have partnerships with other companies that are doing advanced R&D in material science, but also in chip manufacturing, particularly with photonic and optical processing.
Awesome. Okay. I know chips right now are very big. I saw a post, a report that was quoting TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturer, was talking about how I think it was based off their recent earnings, where they basically just said that from what they are seeing, that chips, which is a key infrastructure for AI, it's insatiable. The demand for it is impossible right now for it to be fulfilled. Yeah, and it's continuing to rally more and more. And I keep hearing about it because I'm like, I think the general consensus, especially amongst retailers, that we're in a bubble for AI, and I don't think that's ever been denied. But the question of when it's going to burst has never really, everything that we're hearing from these institutional players is like, we haven't got that. It's so big right now that bursting is not even on our radar right now.
Yeah, one of the other issues, if there is an energy price shock that happens in the short to medium term, that may discourage miners, particularly miners who are less well capitalized, to invest and weather through the storms. That's also a potential risk. But of course, that's something that we're actively trying to address with the Power to X proposition. So if you typically, if you act as if you take what's called merchant risk on a power plant, you will typically because of all of the upfront financial commitments and how project finance and is structured, and we're in a high interest rate environment at the moment as well. You will typically have to weather through, particularly if you build this thing called a merchant plant, i.e. you build a speculative power plant on the basis that you believe that you will get X price in the market for your energy. If you translate that or transfer that to crypto miners, it's capital intensive. That capital intensity is also taking market risk on both power prices and Kaspa price in terms of profitability. But we regularly see, or we often see, people building gas peaker plants, or increasingly in the Middle East, solar projects that are being built with absolutely no pre-agreed power purchase agreement. So they're taking the risk, and then typically the financial profile of those projects is typically negative for the first several years of operation. Most big key infrastructure projects, are operating at a loss for the first for the first few years.
Wow.
So from an infrastructure investor perspective, yeah, there's huge upside, and probably the upside is potentially much higher and better than just building a speculative power plant. So if you add AI or crypto mining to it, you have a much better profit potential. But we are in a high interest environment, high interest rate environment at the moment. But there's no shortage of capital to be deployed into large capex projects. And there are many people that need to place capital into projects that are willing to take what's called merchant risk. And I would suspect there's a lot of them are eyeing up the Bitcoin mining market and Kaspa market as well.
Yeah, I saw a report that came from BNY Mellon when it was quoting Baker McKinsey once again, and I believe the quote was something about the belief from Baker McKinsey and their research was by 2040. So we're talking 14 years from now, which in the grand scheme of things is not that far away actually. $106 trillion is the necessary figure. I'm just bringing up the quote on my monitor here. It says, global infrastructure is no longer just a public sector priority. It has become a core asset class for investors worldwide, with McKinsey estimating a cumulative 106 trillion necessary investments through 2040 to meet global infrastructure needs, which, I mean, as you think about that and then correlate that to the market cap and the missions and what's being done and how AI fits into that, how blockchains fitting into that, and getting this instant Kaspa as well. Then
and what's the total crypto market cap? 3 trillion.
3 trillion. Yeah, 3.15 right now. I think if I just quickly check coin market cap,
it's nothing. If the M2 money starts flowing into the market, I think we can expect 10 to 12 trillion flowing into the crypto market.
Insane stuff.
And again, that's a drop in the ocean, compared to what's needed for global infrastructure. And remember, these are pension funds, and these are your pensions of the future that are being managed by these financial institutions. So they need to they need to take a risk-based approach in terms of what will give them a higher probability of a good return. And so you will see, I suspect you will see a lot of capital flowing into AI, but also into the power systems needed for that. And I would imagine a lot of people would see the potential of cheap off-grid energy being used for crypto mining, particularly knowing that optical processing is in the works and is coming down the line as well.
So I have one more question. I know Envy, I'm feeling sorry for Envy now because it's after midnight. But I really want to ask about the background. But just before that, is there any final alpha or anything that you're not supposed to say that, you know, you're a bit tired and you might let it slip?
Yeah, I'm twisting my toes here every single time when Rory start talking, and I was expecting a slip when he was talking about Mongolia, but he didn't.
Boy, what's going on in Mongolia?
There's a magic word he likes to use.
Oh, just between us though, no one's watching. It's fine.
Yeah, it's off now. It's switched off.
Yeah, it's switched off. There's nothing on the air anymore.
Yeah. Rory's itching to say. Yeah.
No, that's just one particular example.
Oh, one of many.
Okay. Envy, I know you're going now, but I was talking to you a little bit before the show, before we started the live, about your background. You're big into Star Trek, and you named Warp Core. Did you name that project, didn't you?
No, that's not completely true. I'm not a big fan of Star Trek. I'm a fan of Trekkies. I'm a big fan of people who actually sees Star Trek and understand Star Trek. Even that I'm not a big fan of it. But you know, I saw it, and I know people from Star Trek industry.
Yeah.
And
Kate Mulgrew, you know her, don't you? Captain Janeway.
Yeah, kind of.
You want to tell them
What?
Go
No. Yeah, my story with the Star Trek is really short. I told my best friend the time that actually, if I ever start watching Star Wars or Star Trek, that she should kill me because I actually get too low. And maybe 5 years after, I was sitting in a New York apartment having dinner with Kate Mulgrew, which she cooked, and we are friends.
Wow.
So kind of happened this way. And while I was watching the first episode of the new Star Trek, which is currently running on Showtime
Academy, is it?
I was chatting with one of the main characters on text message. We was exchanging text messages. So that's I would say I don't even deserve this treatment because I don't have the joy of it as I'm supposed to have. If I do have all these privileges to be close to those people, you know. But
are you hinting that Kaspa is going to be mentioned in Star Trek or anything like that?
Actually,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, get on to Robert Picardo, yeah, and ask him.
Oh, there you go. That's something.
There's a challenge.
Do we have a preferences in which language it needs to be mentioned? Because I think I can make it slip at least in one language.
Not Klingon. Make sure it's English.
Not Klingon. I mean, I'll take any language. You'll one language goes in, and you'll see everyone just like, oh, Starship's meant Kaspa, and you see it translated to every language. Like if it comes out once, everyone's going to translate that, and it's going to go to every language. You hear it in English, you hear it in Spanish.
As I do remember, there is a lot of robots which are in a background flying through the corridors.
This is of the new series, which hasn't yet finished filming. It wraps up in mid-February, I believe.
So we got time.
Yeah, 6th of February. Yeah. So yeah. Actually, that's a great idea. We got Star Trek in Kaspa. Now we need to get Kaspa in Star Trek.
Oh, that's gonna be something. That's
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Okay,
That's insane.
challenge accepted.
Sweet.
Cool.
Heard it here,
That'd be
guys.
brilliant.
Casper in Star Trek is gonna happen. Hopefully very soon.
But they have no money in the 24th century, so it'll have
They have
to be
Kaspa.
ledger technology or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least. Do they have phalanx there? Because if
Which?
the Ferengi,
Of the Ferengi. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
so they must. So if they do have Ferengi, they have something.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. we in some of our code base we have some surprise Easter eggs in our code. Our GitHub is not publicly available for most of the for all the projects right now. It's closed. We'll open up some of it in due course. But we have a little inside joke with some of the writers and some of the cast of Star Trek are familiar with, and we've baked in that particular Easter egg into certain parts of the code. So that'll be a challenge for some people to find.
That's great, because millions of people watch Star Trek, so and then they'd be all wondering, Googling Kaspa, what's that? So
That'd be
yeah.
that'd be awesome. If anything.
Make it happen.
The first crypto be publicly mentioned in a series like that. Actually, I've had Bitcoin in some instances, but you haven't had anything else. So that'd be Casper number 2. Screw Ethereum and XRPs and Solanas and them lot.
Yeah, I can see Terezi is formulating a plan.
Yeah.
The brainstorming going on right now.
Just let's fly to Toronto and make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the show is filmed at Paramount Studios in Toronto. So, yeah.
So if you see any picture on social media that somebody from Kaspa team is in Toronto, you know what are we doing there?
Okay.
Okay.
That's a little help for us as well. Awesome. Do you have any more questions, Joe, or from the community?
No, I'm good. I want Envy to go to bed. I'm feeling sorry for her. She's getting double time, so you know. So it's all right.
Okay, I got some energy from the last question. Actually,
Okay.
this was actually the greatest idea of this month.
Oh, thanks.
Nice one, Joe.
You know, and it's coming from a person who actually, was spending a lot of time in CERN and in Switzerland with a lot of people who were creating crazy stuff there, and that was the first time I actually see the real antimatter there. So it was kind of the reality actually kind of crashed there for me, because it walking through the facility and seeing things.
And we pinched an radiation warning sign from CERN.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody.
You can't delete it now. It's out.
What happened?
You had to let one thing slip. Let one thing slip.
That currently has a very nice position in my office. So you enter my office at your own risk. There may or may not be radioactivity. But knowing the stuff we tend to get up to, there could actually be some radiological active material.
Yeah, I got recently a perfect gift for Christmas. I got uranium glasses. So there are shots containing uranium inside, so they glow at night or under UV8. It's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, not going. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's real.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Yeah.
we have yeah
We do crazy. We do craziest things. Once I was with a Captain Janeway and Kate Mulgrew, and she was talking about her theatrical career and how she played Madame Curie in the theater. And the friend of mine came with a rock of uranium and give it to her. And she was like, "Why my hand doesn't fall apart?" holding the piece of rock, and she was
Yeah.
totally amazed by things that are like in our possession.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've a lot of fun things.
Yeah.
We get around quite a bit, and we've a lot of fun stuff.
Mhm.
We talk about the s'mores conversation that we had.
Oh yeah, with Cara and Juan. Yeah.
Yeah, so last week on Cara and Ron's show, she was talking about s'mores, and I didn't know what a s'more was, and it was explained to me what a s'more was, and you cook it over a bonfire and things like that. Jerry, you're just a little bit familiar with them, and I don't know how many people are actually are familiar with s'mores, but I figured out that I have the best tool available for cooking s'mores.
Oh no. We've seen it already.
Would you like to see it?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Go on, why
Oh,
not?
yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. So I
The police are gonna raid your house
I
after
have
this.
something that's kind of close to my desk that I use as a tool for getting my own way usually.
For community guidelines' sake, it's a prop.
Yeah, this may end up getting the show demonetized or evicted from thing. But I figured out my perfect s'mores cooking tool, which is this.
Oh my god! That is a piece of kit.
So it doesn't have a gas cylinder because I think if I fired it in this particular room, the sprinklers might go off. So I won't, but I might make a video of firing it, or but yeah.
And make the best s'mores.
This is a little trinket from a visit to the Boring Company, and you have no idea how difficult it was to get it shipped into Ireland. That took one hell of an effort.
I can only imagine.
So that was something. I'm just on the Star Trek thing, just to promote a different product. A lot of people use Zoom, and we have through one of our incredible partner companies. We have a product called Hollow. If people would like to go and check it out, it's an alternative to Zoom, which is really boring. If like we're on screen here, we're all live and we're all in our own little boxes, but with Hollow, spelled HOLOH.com. HOLOH.com, hollow.com. We can place you in a 3D holographic meeting environment. It runs in the browser.
Sorry, Rory. What did you say it was?
HOLOH.
I got it up here.
if you want to pull it up, it's really cool. And the name also has a Star Trek reference in it.
Who's gone? I'm gone. Why am I gone?
That's Warp Core.
Yeah.
There you go.
So this is what a Zoom call looks like in Hollow.
Wow.
So you end up getting placed in a beautiful. Some of the best architectural and interior designers in the world were involved in designing the spaces, and we can, if you want to have a Zoom meeting, you sit in this beautiful 3D environment at a desk. You'll have an iPad in front of you for discussing documents and everything else, a virtual one. And some of the rooms have big screens on the wall, so you can share a presentation. But everybody's placed and sitting around a nice table, so you can place yourself into a very nice environment without everybody being locked into a box. And it runs on an incredible piece of software called Reality OS, which is developed by one of our partners, one of our very good friends, and Reality OS runs all of this in the browser. It's a really cool piece of technology, and we didn't want to call it Holodeck because that's probably trademarked. So we went with Hollow. So the team did a great job on that. It's really cool the way you're put into this immersive environment. So some people out there might like to go and try it out. It's really cool, and you might have some fun with it.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, guys. There's a Hollow if you want to give that a try yourself. I think that would actually, though, with 2.5 hours in, that's a new record here. We'll see if we can go longer next time as well. But yeah.
Oh yeah, we have many other projects that are still in the pipeline, and we'll talk about.
Does that mean you'll come back on again?
Sure, why not?
Oh, nice. There you go. Part 2 coming soon.
We'll try and make it earlier for Envy because
yeah,
it was a half 12, is it?
No.
Yeah.
Maybe Envy might go on her own and talk about some of the stuff we're doing with Silicon and those sorts of things.
Okay, I have a question. May I?
of course.
If there is one question you could ask any character from Star Trek, I'm not talking about actors. I'm really talking about the Star Trek characters. Which Star Trek character do you believe would have the best answer for the future? No, giving you the perspective from the future, how things are.
That'd be Captain Picard.
Captain Picard. Isn't it too detached from the society itself? Only like on one ship?
He's explained it lots in the program to people from the past that, money doesn't exist in the 24th century and poverty and crime has been wiped out and all this kind of stuff, he's explained it a few times. So I know he can. The other characters I haven't heard having to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
So plus he'd be the one I'd like to meet. I'd like to meet Patrick Stewart. If you can make that happen as well, that'd be good. Before he gets any older.
Hey, well, William Shatner is what, 97, 98?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. He's second best captain, yeah. Yeah.
Everybody has their own favorite captain.
Mm.
Yeah. Sure.
You're really thinking there.
Mm.
The brainstorming going again.
Yeah, I think we might have to ask we might have to get someone from Star Trek on the show to talk about the future and the future of money and things like that, how they view society in the future.
I'd say no. If you get someone,
Is that why you're asking? Are you thinking like that?
If you were to get someone from Star Trek on the blockchain banter, that would be something.
Yeah, and we have to ask them questions like they're in the 24th century. He's not in Star Trek. He's in Stargate.
No, he's in two Star Trek series.
He is.
Yeah, he's in the brand new one that just launched on Paramount.
I've seen that. Yeah,
it's only out a week, and he's also a hologram.
all right.
We like holograms.
Yeah,
I mean they're very like futuristic as well. It kind of fits the whole aesthetic as well.
Hmm.
Right, well, Star Trek coming soon. That's going to be something.
yeah. Look forward to it. Yeah, Star Trek guest coming on. Yeah, with Envy.
You know, my still franchise is still different than Star Trek.
Sorry.
It's asleep now.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that?
No, I said this is actually my original franchise is a little bit different than Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
But I think I have a hint behind me.
Ah. Okay.
You might need to move your head a little bit.
I see Kaspa. That's all I see.
That's why I clicked on your screen, Envy, and I forgot it was live, so everybody could see me. But I was trying to see the pictures in the background. Like if I do this, I think it just.
Which one?
I don't know. What? Is that your one out of Terminator? Hamilton, is it? Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Apart of Schwarzenegger, I know a lot of people from Terminator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trezi's network is incredible.
Yeah. Is that you managed TV stations, didn't you? Is that how you know all these people?
No, I always thought that actually if you want to know people and know TV industry, you need to work in television. I tried 3 different televisions, and then I realized all I need to do is ask them to come to me. So I did, and they started coming to Prague.
Right.
That easy. I need to learn it to do then.
But I think I think what you were hinting at was the truth is out there. And Kaspa is the ultimate record of truth.
Oh yeah.
All right. Okay.
Especially with that new GeoSeal as well. The whole thing that's gonna help a lot in that.
The truth is out there.
Yeah, the truth is out there. And my biggest quote is this one.
Trust on what? Trust no one. Oh, that's.
X-Files. What's trust no one?
Yes, it's.
That's from the X-Files, no?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the truth is out there. Most likely on Kaspa.
Love it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that will probably wrap up today's very exciting, action-packed blockchain banter. Do you have any closing statements, Roy? Just a final word to the people watching who are still tuning in.
Yeah, like and subscribe to the channels. there's a lot of cool stuff that we can talk about in the future. There's a lot of potential within Kaspa. It only as an ecosystem, it's only going to get better over time, there's literally so many opportunities. There's old pieces of infrastructure that's literally holding the world together. An example for that is the telecoms industry, and I mentioned this publicly, is the SS7 network. It was built in the 80s and last upgraded in 1993, and it manages all of the interconnections and terminations of telephone calls all around the world, and all of the roaming settlements. It's an ancient piece of infrastructure that many people have tried to upgrade onto blockchains, but none of them have succeeded yet.
But with Kaspa, they will.
Yeah, but the sheer volume of these settlements is probably more than even Kaspa could handle.
So is that a case of therefore being multiple solutions necessary, or it's just a case of Kaspa, once it reaches that 10 BPS sort of level of infrastructure, it could potentially handle that?
I think even then, just the volume, it might struggle with a little bit. But there's lots of networks out there that are literally hanging on for dear life, that could do with a global real time decentralization network like Kaspa.
Awesome.
You'd be really surprised. There's so many little niches. And I actively encourage the Kaspa community in their own jobs to actively look to see, is there a process, or is there infrastructure within our business or our industry that is just completely outdated, that if you understand Kaspa enough, Kaspa may be able to transform, that's, I suppose, a call to the community to just actively think about that in their own lives and their own existing jobs and businesses. Where Kaspa, apart from doing settlements in Kaspa, but itself, but where Kaspa as a global decentralized network, sequencing network, could actually be transformative.
Amazing. So I guess Jonathan, Michael Sutton, and Kaspa calling to work on 1,000 BPS then to be able to handle the telecom network, if not maybe even a little bit higher, if that's even feasibly possible.
Well, at 100 blocks per second, a packet of data traveling right around the world takes it's 2/3 the speed of light traveling through the fiber optic network, because of all of the interconnects and terminations and points of presence and everything else that it has to go through. But that packet of data, Kaspa creates blocks faster than those data packets can arrive. Wow. And that's something interesting at 100 BPS. Kaspa is the absolute next generation of global infrastructure.
You heard it here first. Kaspa is the future. Well, with that being said, thank you a million, Rory and Tudizi. Thank you very much for tuning in and participating and answering community questions this week. It was beyond insightful, and I'm going to have to listen back to it, I'll be honest. There's going to be so much more I'm going to have to dissect myself, so that's going to be my morning tomorrow when I'm at the gym. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, those who are still tuning in, as we approach the 3-hour mark almost, thank you very much for watching me and Jer, and for tuning in to our KII exclusive blockchain banter at internet speed. Next week, well, you'll hear the announcement that comes through. That being said, though, family, thank you all very much. Thank you, Rory. Thank you, Envy, and
Thanks, guys.
yeah, brilliant stuff. See you all next week, hopefully.
Thanks, guys.
See you later. Thank you. I can't. I'm wrong hand. I can't do. Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah. So to the Kaspa community, live long and prosper.
Yeah.
Amen.
And may most of that